Hey gems, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Today is a super exciting one for me. I'm going to be giving you a tutorial on how to create this cute little mini tapestry right here, and this is actually one of 4 patterns that I am releasing as my mini Halloween tapestries pattern. I think that's what I'm going to call it. I am recording this before I have released the pattern and it's still in the testing phases. All of my testers are just so wonderful and I'm so excited, and this whole process has just been so fun and so exciting. I genuinely, this is my first time doing this kind of thing and it's just brought me so much joy. So I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to read a graph, and then how to kind of do color changes, how to add a border, and how to do surface crochet. Now, I just want to give you a forewarning. I have never done a tutorial before and I am not the best at explaining things. So I will be linking in the description below a couple of videos that I've also included in the pattern that are a little bit better than maybe what I'm going to be saying. So if you struggle with any part of this, hopefully there's a video in the description that will help you a little bit more. But I kind of wanted to make my own video because it's my own pattern, and yeah, I'm just so excited to share these with you guys. There are 2 versions of this pattern. There's going to be one version that is going to be on my Instagram completely for free. It's going to be, you know, taking you through the basics, and so it's not a very in-depth pattern. You kind of need to know the basics of crochet and tapestry work, but hopefully it is enough to guide you through. All of my testers have had no problem with the pattern, so that's a big thumbs up for me, and some of them are like brand new to tapestry crochet. And like I said, it's going to be 4 patterns. There is a ghost, a cat, a pumpkin, and some witch's legs. And these started out as me just making them for decoration at work, but when I posted them on Instagram, just on my story, I got a lot of people interested in them, so I thought I would throw together a little free tutorial for you guys and a free pattern. And then on my Ko-fi, you can purchase the pattern for just a couple of pounds, and in that pattern will be direct links to the stitch fiddle graphs, which I find super useful when it comes to, you know, following the rows and the stitch count. And so if you want the direct links to those and not just the image, then you can purchase that over on my Ko-fi, and maybe some other places if I figure it out, but quite frankly I don't. So, but yeah, let's just get into it. Alrighty, so when you click the link that's on my pattern that takes you to the stitch fiddle graph, this is what it's going to look like. And if you don't click the link, or you're just using the picture, you can skip to the part where we actually start reading it. If you are using the links in my pattern that take you to stitch fiddle and you want to change the colors of the graph or anything like that, you're going to want to make a copy by going to file and then create a copy, and you can obviously make yourself a copy, and then you should be able to make edits to it, such as changing the color. If you want to change the color, just double tap on the color and then go here and you can pick whatever you want. What I love about stitch fiddle is that you can click this little button here, and this is the progress tracker, and when you do that it takes you to like this kind of a screen. And so I'm going to just click on this first row and it highlights the row that you are working on, and then you can just go up row by row, and that's how you can keep track. If you aren't using the actual website, obviously you can just keep track by eye, or I would recommend either like screenshotting it and using an app such as Procreate, or even printing it out and crossing off each row when you've completed it, just so you can keep track a little bit better. So I'm actually going to show you the page of my pattern that tells you how to read a graph to tell you how to read the graph. So the way that tapestry crochet works is that you work in rows. You go back and forth and you change colors when you need to. And there are differences between right-handed and left-handed tapestry crochet when it comes to reading it. If you are right-handed, you're going to want to start in the bottom right corner, right here where it says start here, and you're going to work from right to left. There are 2 pretty useful ways of remembering kind of which direction you should be looking at the graph when you're working on the tapestry crochet. And the first one is that if you are on an odd row, such as row 1, 3, 5, you're working from right to left. And if you're on an even row, such as 2, 4, 6, you'll be working from left to right. And an even better way that I kind of use more often to help me remember which row I'm on is that if you are on an odd numbered row, you are working on the right side of your tapestry crochet, so you're working on the side that will be, you know, seen. And if you're working on an even number, then you're working on the wrong side. Each square is relative to 1 stitch. Now I do tapestry crochet either in single crochets or half double crochets. If I'm doing a tapestry crochet that is to be hung up on the wall or used as like a banner or decoration, I would most likely use single crochet, but if I'm doing it on a wearable like a jumper or a cardigan, I'll probably use half double crochet, just because it works up a bit faster, and also I don't know, it just works better in my mind, I think. But bear in mind, if you are going to be doing half double crochets instead of single crochets, your work will come out more rectangular in the like vertical aspect, so rather than square, because obviously single crochets are like teeny tiny little squares, whereas half double crochets is like a little rectangle. So just keep that in mind when deciding if you want to use single or half double. I will be using single, and this is all in US terminology. So yeah, if you're right-handed, start in the bottom right corner from right to left. If you are left-handed, the graph is going to be flipped like this, and you're going to want to start in the bottom left corner. Now this here, what you're seeing, is actually a visualization of the back of your work, because the way that left-handed people crochet means that it's technically being worked on the wrong side, I believe. I am not left-handed, but I've kind of done some research on this. Destiny Makes has a wonderful YouTube video on how to do crochet tapestry for left-handed people, so I've linked that here. But yeah, so what you're seeing is actually going to be like the back of the work. So yeah, you're going to want to start in the bottom left-hand corner. Those top tricks from before is that if you are on an odd number, you'll be working from left to right, and if you're working on an even numbered row, you'll be working right to left. And so again, the other trick that I use more frequently is that if you're in an odd numbered row, you'll be working on the wrong side of your tapestry, and if you're working on an even numbered row, you'll be working on the right side of your tapestry. I hope that all makes sense. I believe that's everything I need to say about how to read the graphs. I personally would recommend using the links to Stitch Fiddle, but again, you don't necessarily need them. I oftentimes, if there's no link to Stitch Fiddle, or it's like a graph someone's made using a different program, I will just screenshot it and put it onto my iPad and then just cross it off as I go. And a lot of people do print them out and then cross it off as you go. But now we're going to get into the bulk of the video, and I'm going to show you how to actually do the tapestry. So I'm going to do a little bit of crochet for you guys. Okay, so this is everything that I'm going to be using today to make my mini tapestry. I have all of my yarn here in different colours that I will need. This graph only requires 4 colours, but obviously this will change depending on what kind of tapestry crochet you are doing. I've got a hook here. This is actually a 3.5mm needle. This yarn recommends a 4, but for tapestry I like to size down just so it's a little bit neater and it's a little bit tighter, and it makes the stitches just that little bit more refined. There's no gaps in between, and so that's why I like to go down a size. I've got embroidery scissors and a darning needle to weave in my ends later, but we don't need these for a little bit. So as previously stated, this tapestry is 30 stitches wide, which means I'm going to need to chain 30 plus 1 extra stitch for turning as my foundation chain. So we're going to start with a slip knot. There's many different ways of doing this, so I would recommend kind of searching around, seeing what works best for you, but that's how I do mine. So then we're going to chain 31, and you do this by yarning over and pulling through, and that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and do 30 more. So I have chained 31, and now we're going to want to work the first row of our graph, which for us is pretty simple. It's just a single crochet in each stitch. From your foundation chain, you will see that there are these little bumps on the back and then little V's on the front. We're going to want to go into these back loops, these little lumps here. Just makes our foundation just that little bit neater, and it's also easier to find the stitches. And you're going to want to do your first stitch in the second loop from the hook. So not this first one here, but this second one here. So to do a single crochet, you want to insert your hook into that space, yarn over and pull through, so there's 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through those 2, so there's 1 loop on your hook, and that's a single crochet. And we're going to continue this all the way across until we have 30 single crochets. Right, so I've just gone and done my 30 stitches. Now there's two different ways that you can start the next row. You can either chain one, turn your work, and then insert your next single crochet into the first stitch. But what I like to do to make my edges just that little bit more neater is to just skip the chain at the end. So instead of chaining one, you just want to turn your work and insert your hook straight into that stitch. Just like that. It's not too noticeable of a difference, but it does, I feel, just make the edges that little bit more neater and straight. But like I said, you're more than welcome to chain one and turn. That is the instructions that are in my pattern for this, but that's because I wanted the pattern to be super beginner friendly and kind of familiar to beginners. So yeah, either way it will work fine. Okay, so now we're going to be working on row 2. And what you're going to want to do is look at your pattern, look at your graph, and count how many stitches it is until your first color change. For me, on this one, there are 5 stitches and then I need to change color. So I've already done 1 single crochet. I'm going to go ahead and do 4 more, but not finish the 5th one. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. 5. So I'm on my 5th stitch, but I haven't completed it, which means that I've inserted my hook and yarned over, so there's 2 loops on my hook. But this is where I'm going to change my color. But you're going to want to grab whatever color that you're changing into. And you can, if you want to, create a slip knot and then put that on your hook to make it a bit easier. But I don't like the extra bulk that gives. So I like to just place my new yarn over my hook, hold it with my thumb, and make sure that both my yarns are on the back. Because we're changing colors and this is going to be the wrong side of our work, we want to have our yarn facing towards us. If we were working on the right side of our work, we would want the yarn on the back of it. So we've got our yarn over our hook, and then I'm going to complete this single crochet using my new color. So I'm just going to yarn over and pull through. And now we have our new color on the hook, and we can continue crocheting with this color until we need to change back or to a different color. So then you're just going to place a single crochet in the next stitch with this new color, and then just give a little tug on the tails, and there you go, you've changed color. Now this pattern calls for me to go ahead and do 8 stitches, so I'm going to go and do 8 more stitches but not finish the 8th one. I'm going to change back into my other color. There we go, I've done my 8th color. Now if you were changing to a different color, you would use the same technique that you just did, but we are going to be changing back to this purple color. There's a couple different ways that you can carry your yarn. I'm going to be floating my yarn, which means that I'm not crocheting over it, and I'm not going to be cutting my yarn all the time, because 1, I hate weaving in ends, and 2, I just find it a little bit quicker to do it this way. So because this is a small tapestry and we're not going over too many stitches, I'm just going to grab the color, the tail of the color that we were using before, and you want to have a little bit of slack to it. So I like to kind of hold it a bit loosely and then secure it with my thumb, yarn over and pull through in that color, and then whilst it's still a bit loose, place a single crochet in the next stitch. You want this float here to be nice and loose, otherwise when you continue doing the tapestry, it's gonna wanna shrink, it's gonna wanna cinch in. So you wanna make sure that this float is nice and loose, and you can do that just by securing it with your thumb. My nails are the same color as this yarn, so it's a little bit hard to see, I do apologize. So my pattern calls to do 4 of these, 4, not finish that stitch, and do the same thing. Make sure that you're aware of kind of like how your yarn is twisting, just to kind of alleviate a little bit of that stress later on. You're going to want to, you know, try not and make it too tangled in the early stages, so that later when you start adding more colors, or if you have more frequent color changes, it's not as it doesn't get as tangled. So when I did this one, you can see that my yarn is kind of twisted here, so I'm actually going to put the purple yarn over the green, and now it's untwisted. So yeah, keep that green nice and loose, secure with my thumb, finish off that stitch, and then go into the next one and give that purple one a bit of a tug. And then I'm going to do 8 more of these. So I'm on my 8th stitch, and this is where you can kind of see if you've gone wrong anywhere. I like to count how many stitches I have left and make sure that that's the same number that I need on the graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5 stitches left, which is what I need, which means I've done everything right so far, which is pretty good. So again, I'm going to carry my yarn over to here, keep it loose, secure with my thumb, finish off the stitch, and then single crochet until the end. Give it a little bit of a pull to kind of get all those stitches in the right place and to stretch out that yarn. And depending on how you want to, you know, start the next row, you can either chain or just turn. I'm going to just turn. I'm going to turn our work. And this is what it's looking like so far. Obviously not like much, but once you keep going, it's obviously going to turn into a nice little picture. That is basically everything you need to know about how to complete this. Obviously in a little bit, once I finish this, I'm going to show you how to do surface crochet, and I'm also going to show you how I did the border, so the scalloped edge. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off this little graph, and I'll be right back with you. So I'm about to start my 6th row, and this is a situation where I may consider doing something different to floating when it comes to stitches that are really far apart. I'm not going to do it for this one because again it's a small tapestry, but if I was working on something where there was one colour but it was like on both sides of the graph and there was a large distance in between, this is what I would do. Some people would use what you would call bobbins, which is where you get some yarn and you kind of make a small skein of yarn from that yarn, if that makes any sense. Some people use pegs and they'll clip the yarn to the peg and then wrap the yarn around it, or you could use like the little embroidery flosses, but I don't like doing that. I don't know why, I just don't. So this is my solution. If I had 2 skeins of the yarn that I want to use, I would just use the 2 skeins. But if I don't, what I'll do is I will take the yarn from the outer pull, and I'll also take the yarn from the center pull, and I will just work from those ones. As a beginner, I would maybe not recommend doing this because your yarn will get tangled and it will be a little bit trickier to kind of control, but that's just how I like to do it. I'm not going to do it in this instance because there aren't a huge amount of stitches in between. It's only 10 stitches, so it's not too bad. But for example, when I was working on this version of the graph, which I haven't quite finished yet, you can see on the back here, you can see here where I have floated the yarn between the stitches, but across this white bit, I've actually used the outer and the center pull for the purple. So instead of floating my yarn fully across, I have just used 2 different strands of yarn. But like I said, I'm not going to do it on this one that I'm working on now because the stitches aren't too bad. I did the same for this ghost. I did it for both the black yarn and the purple yarn. But I'm just going to continue working on this. BRB. So as you can see, I have just finished the complete graph, and you could totally leave it here. You could stop right now, weave in your ends and be done. But to make it look a little bit more professional, I am going to be adding a border. So I'm going to be adding a scalloped border, but alongside that, I would really recommend you going around with a single crochet border anyway, because this will help straighten out the edges just that little bit more. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. This row right here is super easy. This is, we're just going to insert 1 single crochet into each stitch as if we're doing a 31st row, but this is going to be the first kind of layer of our border. So I'm going to go ahead and do a single crochet across, and then I'll get back to you. Right, so as you can see, got to the other side, and now we're going to be working along the edge of the graph. Now this can be a little bit trickier, especially if you are a beginner and you haven't really done much seaming and stuff before, but it'll be really easy once you kind of wrap your head around it. So to figure out where each row is, kind of stretch your work apart a little bit, and you'll be able to kind of identify the rows along here. You can see the little holes, the little gaps where each row is. So that's one row, that's another row, that's another row. But I would recommend keeping count of how many stitches you're doing, and you should end up with 30. Now, this is the important part. To get a nice crisp edge, I recommend chaining 2. And then the first row is actually in the same stitch that we ended with. So we're going to want to put a single crochet back into that stitch, just like that, because that is our first row, but it's also our first stitch and our last stitch. I hope that makes sense. So then we're just going to go along and kind of place 1 single crochet in each row, and I'm going to keep track of how many stitches I've made. 30. So as you can see, I placed a single crochet along the edge, and by chaining 2 we've made a really nice little corner for ourselves. We're going to do the same again. We're going to chain 2 and insert our hook, our first single crochet of this edge, back into that same stitch. Now this is another reason why we want to do our first row into the bumps of the foundation chain, because it will make doing single crochets into this edge here a lot easier, because as you can see, it's all V's. I hope that's kind of clear for you guys. It's all V's, whereas if you'd have gone into the V or like into the side of them, it would just be a lot messier. So that's another reason why we work into the bumps. But now again, we're just going to place 1 single crochet all the way along, and these ones are going to be a little bit fiddlier because we're working into a foundation chain, but just take your time and kind of feel around for them. And that's our bottom edge, and then we're just going to repeat that for the 4th time along this final edge. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into that very first stitch right there, and then cut our yarn. Again, you could totally leave it here. It looks pretty good. I like how square it is, but I am going to be adding this really cute little scalloped edge. So this is super easy. It's super fun. It makes it look like it's in a little frame, which I just love. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you're going to grab your piece and insert your hook into that first chain 2 that you have, or I guess the last chain 2 that we did, and attach your coloured yarn. Again, you can do this by attaching it with a slip stitch, but I just prefer to do it this way, and then chain 1. And then insert 1 single crochet into that same stitch. Now the way the scalloped stitch works is we're going to do 1 single crochet, skip a stitch, then insert 5 double crochets into the next one, skip a stitch, and then place a single crochet in the next. So that's kind of the repeat. If you want your scallops to be less fluffy, like less rounded, you can either decrease the amount of double crochets that you put into that one stitch, or you can increase the amount of spaces that you skip between the single crochet and the double crochet cluster. This works the other way around as well if you want them to be a little bit fluffier, but this is just how I found for me, is that I do 1 single crochet, skip a stitch, 5 double crochets, skip a stitch, single crochet. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you the first one. So we've done our single crochet, and then we want to skip this next stitch right here and do 5 double crochets. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull up a loop so there's 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's our first double crochet. And you're going to do that 4 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once you've done that, skip this next stitch. So you can see here, this is the stitch we just worked into. We're going to skip this one and work into this one here. So just insert 1 single crochet into there. And that's your first scallop. So then we're going to skip the next stitch and insert 5 more double crochets into the next one. And then skip a stitch and insert a single crochet into the next. And this is how our scallops are looking. So the repeat is actually, you start your round with the first single crochet, and then the repeat is skip a stitch, 5 double crochets into the next stitch, skip a stitch, single crochet. And that's the repeat. That's what we're going to do all the way along. Now, depending on how wide your graph is, will kind of depend on what happens in the corners. So because we are technically working with 31 stitches now instead of 30, because we've kind of added this extra stitch with our chain 2s in the corners, our corners are going to be slightly different to each other. So as you can see with this ghost one, I've worked my scallop all the way across, but this scallop is worked into the corner stitch. And then along this side, when you get to the end, the single crochet is worked into the corner stitch. You go across, this scallop is worked into the corner stitch, and you go up to the end, and this single crochet is worked into the corner. Like I said, this will depend on how big your graph is or how wide you want your scallops to be. So this is kind of how it's going to work out for this one. But I will work to the end of this row here and kind of show you what that looks like, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've worked my scallops all the way up to kind of the edge. And look, this maybe isn't the proper way that you should be doing it, but this is kind of my cheat way that I do it, because I am no, absolutely perfect crocheter by any means, and so I like to skip corners, maybe every now and then. So basically I've got to the end and I've got 1, 2, 3 stitches left technically until I reach the next one. But if I do a skip and then 5 double crochets here, I'm gonna have to put my single crochet into this stitch on this edge, which I don't really want to do because it's gonna look a little bit weird. So quite frankly, I'm just going to pretend like there's only 1 stitch left and I'm going to work my 5 double crochets into that corner 2 chain space. And I might even do more than 5 double crochets depending on how much it wants to curl. So that's 3, 4, 5. And then if I was to finish there, there's the first stitch, there's the second stitch. Let's put a single crochet in there right now and see how it looks. That looks fine. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. But that's kind of why the corners are slightly different depending on how many stitches you have. Because we're working on such a small scale as well, skipping 1 or 2 stitches really isn't going to affect the piece that much. So that's kind of what I do to get around it. So just continue working your scallops all the way around until you've got to the end, and kind of make your own judgment call on how you approach the corners. That's kind of all I do. So that is the basics of how to do the scallops, and I'm gonna go finish off the edges and then I'll be back. So we have basically finished. Now the only other kind of technique that I want to show you guys is how to surface crochet. Now surface crochet is a really good technique to help define your stitches. Using my ghost one as an example, you can see that I did a bunch of surface crochet outlining him and also his eyes and his hands, and all I'm doing is following the black outline from the graph. And the surface crochet that I'm going to add to this is going to be around the witch's shoes and possibly also the little buckles here, because as you can see, the thing with colorwork in crochet is that because the stitches aren't really technically on top of each other, unlike knitting where each stitch is directly above, with crochet they kind of lean towards the left and the right. So when it comes to stitches like this, you can see that on this side there's like a little gap, whereas on this side there isn't. And the same with here and here. And you can see that this stitch here is more defined than this one, and it's just little bits and bobs like that. So surface crochet is going to help us kind of define these shapes, but first we need to deal with this. So first we're going to weave in our ends. You can weave in your ends completely however you want to and whatever your preference is. I'm just going to quickly show you how I like to weave in mine. I like to get a needle that has a really sharp point on it. These are just darning needles from Hobbycraft. They're called hand needle darners, and they come in this pack of like 5. They're very good. I am going to weave my yarn through the stitches, but only like the back loops, if that makes any sense. So can you see here? I've kind of picked up the back of these stitches, and if I flip it over, you cannot see it on the other side. And I'm going to pull that through. Now to make it more secure, I'm going to go back through them, but this is why I like to use a very pointy needle, because I'm basically going to thread my yarn through that last bit of yarn so that it kind of like sews into itself, and then pull through. Now if I was doing some clothing, I would probably go back on myself again a 3rd time, but because this is tapestry crochet and it's not going to be, you know, put through any vigorous tasks, 2 passes should be fine. And as you can see, you cannot see it from the front, and it's nice and neat on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and weave in the rest of them. Ta-da! So we're all weaved in. It's looking pretty good. Now we're going to do a little bit of surface crochet. I'm hoping I can explain this pretty well, but if not, in my pattern that you can purchase, I have linked a couple different YouTube videos to do with the scalloping, to do with reading a graph, and also to do with surface crochet. So I would really recommend watching those. I will also link them in the description of this video in case you kind of don't understand what I'm saying, because I have never done a tutorial before. So what we're going to want to do is find whatever stitch that you want to start at. I'm going to go into this one just here and insert my hook from front to back. And then we're going to want to attach our yarn. Again, you can attach this using a slip knot if you want. I'm not really bothered, but we're going to just pull that through to the front. And this is the start of it. Then we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch from front to back, and then yarn over and pull through to the front, and then you're gonna pull through that loop. And essentially surface crochet is just slip stitching onto the surface of your crochet, hence the name. So you're going to want to continue to do that all the way around, whatever shape that you're doing, or wherever you feel you want a little bit more definition. And then that's kind of the whole deal. It can be a bit fiddly at first, but once you kind of wrap your head around it and get into the rhythm of it all, it starts to work out, and it just adds this little bit of definition here. So I'm going to continue working my surface crochet until I get back to that first stitch, and then I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to do. This is where we're at and she looks a little bit funny, but I actually really like it. It's obviously given the shoe just a little bit more definition, and it looks really cute. Now we want to work on this shoe now, obviously, to make it symmetrical, and you can't really just go into this side because obviously the yarn will carry over. So what I like to do, so that I don't have a billion ends to weave in afterwards as well, I like to just grab a bit of yarn, and because surface crochet is worked in slip stitches and not single crochets or double crochets or anything, it doesn't actually use up that much yarn. So cut off, you know, a length of yarn, and then you're going to want to pull that yarn all the way through. All the way through. Oh, I've tangled mine. Cool. So now you have the tail on the right side. But what you're going to want to do is insert your hook from the back and pull your yarn back through. Now your yarn is on the back and it looks pretty neat. And then we're going to do the exact same thing that we did a minute ago, and we're going to insert our hook from front to back and then grab that tail over that we just were using and pull through. So now you've basically floated your yarn across for the single crochet as well, for the surface crochet as well, sorry. And then you're going to continue as we just did, and I will go around this shoe and I'll be back once I'm done. So as you can see, there's my two little booties. And I'm going to pull my yarn through to the front like I did a minute ago, and then insert my hook from back to front and pull my yarn back through. And that is how you do surface crochet. And you know, it's not perfect. It doesn't always, you know, look exactly how you want. Like, I love this point here, but it's a little bit funky on this side because I'm trying to hide like the stitches underneath. But from far away, she looks good. She looks fine. And so that is basically everything. That's basically everything that I wanted to show you. Two final things you could do to finish these off fully is you can steam block it, which is where you pin this to be a little bit squarer and then get a steamer or an iron and kind of steam it a little bit to soften up those stitches. And this would be good if you were doing a piece that has a lot more color changes and maybe your tension was a little bit tighter than you wanted to and it's kind of like shrunk in. But because we've added this single crochet border and this scallop border, and because there aren't too many color changes and we kind of kept our tension loose, it's pretty square already, so I would definitely just leave it like this. And then something else I did on my original versions of these was I covered the back with a square of felt, and I literally just hot glued that onto the back of it, and I also kind of just, you know, neatened up the back and hid all those loose ends. But essentially this is how it comes out. But that is everything that I have to share with you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative and educational for you guys. It has taken me a long time to put together, so I appreciate you being here and watching the video. And if you make one of these yourself, please tag me on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you want to post it. I'm Jazzy0451 everywhere. If I'm there, I am that. Let me know which one's your favorite down below. I think my favorite are the witch's legs. I just think they're so cute. But a close favorite is the ghost. I think the ghost was the most popular. The ghost was the one that I had the most requests for on my tester form. So yeah, these are kind of the three that I've got finished so far. I do want to make the pumpkin as well in this kind of colorway. Oh, it matches my shirt. So yeah, I haven't finished the cat one fully yet. I need to do some surface crochet on that. And thank you so much to all of my testers as well. They have been absolutely amazing, and I didn't expect people to do more than one, but so many of them have gone out of their way to do multiple, if not all of them. And just the way that they've been creative with these is so cool. You know, using it as pockets for a cardigan, making larger tapestry crochets, and just and the colorways and stuff. But thank you guys once again for sticking around whilst I ramble on about crochet. If you like the video, then like the video and subscribe to the channel. It'd be great to have you here. And if you want to see me elsewhere, like I said, I'm Jazzy0451 everywhere. Just come follow me. And have a wonderful rest of your day, night or evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys. like I said, I'm Jazzy0451 everywhere, just come follow me. And have a wonderful rest of your day, night or evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!